Hello, this is our final discussion of the study guide questions for Tuck Everlasting. So I'm going to start with the answers to chapter 19. Number 1, why was Winnie suspicious of the man in the yellow suit? Well, there are a couple of different answers that you could use for this question. He was so curious that it sort of made her uncomfortable about all the questions that he was asking. I think there's also a mention of how he had a lack of facial expressions. And I think she just had a sense of the fact that he was not a very nice guy. And I think it was just her intuition that was telling her that, she needed to be careful around him. Number 2, how does the man in the yellow suit know about the Tucks? Now, this was probably one of the most interesting parts of the story for me. The stranger's grandmother had a friend, and she was the wife of Miles. And the stranger's grandmother would tell him stories about the Odd family. So she was basically Miles's wife's friend. And so Miles's wife told her all these things, and she in turn told him all the stories. Number 3, what was the man's one clue to the Tucks? The tune from the music box. Yep, that was the one clue that led him straight to them. What does the man plan to do now that he knows the secret? Remember what we said about social studies and history? It's all about the money. He wants to sell the water to the highest bidders. How do the Tucks feel about what he wants to do? They're extremely upset because they know the consequences more so than the man in the yellow suit does. How does the man want the Tucks to help? Well, he wants help finding the spring and advertising and demonstrating how it works. He wants to basically take them around and show off things that he does to them that can't hurt them. What does May do to the man, and who sees it happen? She hits the man in the head with the stock of the shotgun, and the constable saw this. Now, if you watch the movie after this is one big change from the book to the movie. Chapter 20, number 1, what reason did May give for hitting the man? The stranger was taking Winnie against her will, because once the Tucks refused to cooperate with the man in the yellow suit's plans, then he said, well, I'll just take the girl and I'll make the girl drink the water and I'll use her. And that's where May drew the line. She was not going to let anything happen to Winnie. Number 2, what did the constable warn would happen if the man died? May would be hanged. Well, this would be a problem because May wouldn't die when she was hanged. And then the secret would be revealed. Chapter 21, what does Winnie tell her folks about the Tucks? That they were good and gentle people. Do they believe her? Well, they wouldn't believe her until Winnie says she loved them. And that's the one thing they could understand was love. What will happen to the wood if the man dies? It would go back to the Fosters. Now in this chapter, there was a lot that kind of went on with her getting back. And let's see, he says she got him a good one all right. He never even come to. So it's an open and shut case. Since I seen her do it, they'll hang her for sure. And then May Tuck must not go to the gallows. It finishes up. Chapter 22 goes into kind of an odd little part as well. Oh, I'm sorry, there were some more questions on 21. What does the constable come to tell the Fosters? That the man in the yellow suit had died? What defense did the Fosters offer when they find out that Winnie went with the Tucks of her own volition? That means with her own permission. It must have been the elves had bewitched her. That was her grandmother's excuse. Number 6, what did the Fosters sense shortly after putting Winnie to bed? That she was somehow different, that some part of her had changed. Number 7, why does Winnie accept the man in the yellow suit must die? So that the secret would remain safe. Then we get to chapter 22. Jessie comes. Who is Winnie surprised to see on the other side of the fence? Jessie. What does Jessie give to Winnie and why? He gives her a bottle of the water from the spring so she can drink it when she turns 17 and then come find him. What plan does Miles come up with? He plans to break May out of jail by taking out the bars out of the window. Remember, Miles was a carpenter, so he knew how those buildings were constructed. And number 4, what does Winnie think she can help, or how does Winnie think she can help with the plan? She says, hey, I can trade places with May so the constable doesn't realize that May has gone until the morning. It would kind of give them a little bit of a head start. Chapter 23, number 1, what does Winnie do with Jessie's gift? She puts it in her bureau drawer, which is like a chest of drawers. How does Winnie feel about sneaking out of the house? Well, she feels a little bit guilty because she is back under her parents' rules now, so she doesn't have quite the freedom that she had with the Tucks. Why does Winnie want to help the Tucks? They need her to take care of them because they're helpless and they're really in a bind here. Chapter 24, number 1, why is the weather so important for the night? Well, the storm is going to help with the noise that they would make in getting May out. Number 2, what is the last thing Jessie says to Winnie, and what is the significance? All right, this comes after they actually get May out, and Winnie gets in the jail cell, and she kind of hunches up so that she kind of looks like she's May, and they put the bars back in, and as they're about to go away, Jessie says, remember. And what he's talking about is for her to remember to drink the water when she's 17. What does Winnie hear as she looks out into the night? The melody of the music box coming back again. Number 4, explain what is meant by stone walls do not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage. What that phrase means is you don't have to necessarily be trapped behind iron bars to feel like you're trapped. And in a way, this is kind of what led to this situation to start with. Winnie actually felt trapped in her home. She felt like her mother and her grandmother watched her all the time, and she didn't have iron bars. She did have the fence, but she got beyond the fence, but she felt trapped. And the Tucks, in a sense, are not trapped by anything, but they're trapped by their existence in this life without end. And so they're not behind iron bars, but they're trapped in a different way. Chapter 25, of course, Winnie is discovered. It's not a very good thing. She's accused of being an accomplice, which means that she is kind of guilty of a crime as well. But the constable came in and he closed the curtain. He figured it out. That's what happened right after the Tucks left. But then there was a crash that Winnie heard later on. The gallows had blown over in the wind. And then when the constable actually finds her, he's very, very angry and says if she were older, he would keep her in the jail because she'd be guilty of being she is guilty of being an accomplice. What reason did Winnie give her parents for her actions? Do you think these were good reasons? She says in spite of everything, she loved them. And this is where it's talking about they can understand that. They can accept that. Because even when someone is someone that you love and they do something wrong, it doesn't mean that you stop loving them. You may not like what they have done, but you still feel that love for them. Then Winnie gets back and she does something kind of funny with the water. Why does Winnie save the toad from the dog? What does she do with it? And why do you think she did that? Well, the dog was trying to hurt the toad, so she just goes back in and she gets that water and she pours it on the toad. This is going to come back a little bit later at the epilogue. It's kind of a funny part of the book. So the epilogue comes, and remember the epilogue is like the story that happens after the story. It's like the wrapping up, the ending of the book. As May and Tuck come back into Tree Gap, there are lots of ways that Tree Gap has changed, but there are 3 that are mentioned. Number 1, the road was blacktop with a white line down the middle. That means that the road had been paved. The wood was all gone. It's not there anymore. That started them thinking. And there was a bigger jail. And of course, all the, the new stores and all the other things that they would encounter as well. Number 2, what did the Tucks find out happened 2 and 3 years ago? How do they feel about this? Well, they found out that 3 years ago, the wood burned down and was completely bulldozed over. And 2 years ago, Winnie died. Tuck is glad that she stayed on the wheel of life, but May feels bad for Jessie, so she never drank the water. And it says, where do the Tucks go to find answers? What are they looking for? Well, first they go to the diner. They ask questions about the wood and the spring and Winnie Foster, and they find out that, no one knew about a spring in the wood, so evidently Winnie had kept the secret. And then, why do you think Tuck says, good girl? Well, he's at the cemetery, he sees her gravestone, and he says, good girl, because she did not drink from the spring. She believed what he said, and she lived a natural life. And then the funniest part, and if you look, it says that she was quite old when she died. It says, let's see, where had he had seen it. It said Foster on the gravestone. And he said he had wanted it to be there, but now that he saw it, he was sad. And it said, in loving memory, Winifred Foster Jackson, dear wife, dear mother, 1870 to 1948. So she was actually 78 years old when she died. And she had married someone, and she had children. And she had been dead 2 years by then, so they are coming through in the 1950s. And then the funny thing happens at the end. I just love this part of the book. As they are pulling out of town, May says, look out for that toad over there. Tuck had seen it too. He reined in the horse and climbed down from the wagon. The toad was squatting in the middle of the road, quite unconcerned. In the other lane, a pickup truck rattled by, and against the breeze it made, the toad shut its eyes tightly, but it did not move. Tuck waited till the truck had passed, and then he picked up the toad and carried it to the weeds along the road's edge. Darn fool thing must think it's going to live forever, he said to May. And soon they were rolling on again, leaving Tree Gap behind, and as they went, the tinkling little melody of the music box drifted out behind them and was lost at last far down the road. That was the toad that Winnie had put the water on, and he did think he was going to live forever, because he was. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the book. I'm going to post another video that tells you which questions to go in and circle on your study guide. And if you will study this study guide on Monday, then on Tuesday I'll send you a quiz to take and send back to me for the book. It's one of my favorite books. I love it. If you go on YouTube, there's the old 1980s version of this movie. It is really pretty funny, especially if you go on Disney Plus and you see the newer version. There are actually 2 versions of this movie out there. There may even be one other really, really old one. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's a great book. I hope you enjoyed it. Natalie Babbitt is such a good author. And so, anyway, take care. I'll post the study guide circling video as soon as I can. Thanks. Bye.